I just felt like he had suffered so much, and people with extreme mental illness do really suffer a lot. And, my first reaction, like when I found him dead, was, I was just in a vortex of, I don't know, of shock and sadness, but it didn't take me very long. And I don't know if it was half an hour or an hour or 15 minutes or 20 minutes when I thought, of course you did that. I don't blame you a bit. I was proud of the way he survived, I guess.
For as long as he did.
For as long as he did.
Lucifer, the light of heaven, that sinner never was forgiven, banished to his lowly station, till he checks out in Revelations. Why you keep up your life makes no sense to me. They made me a throne in heaven, and I picked hell for the company. Why you keep up your life?
Hi and welcome to Ounce of Prevention. I'm Vickie Morgan, and today my guest is Andy Jones. Andy, thank you so much for being on Ounce of Prevention.
Thank you.
So, of course, Andy, the focus of Ounce of Prevention is people with inspiring lived experience stories. That's the overall reaching umbrella and all that stuff.
Right.
The reason I wanted to talk to you is because your story and how your family dealt with the loss of your son Louis is incredibly inspiring. And so I wanted to, I'm so glad that you're here to talk about that. Tell me about Louis.
Well, Louis was a very, very lively kid and was kind of on the edge and was a very popular kid and had lots of friends and was kind of a leader because he was very edgy and would do stuff other kids wouldn't do, and so he was always organizing people to go up to the hill and get skating and do stuff like that. And he was physically very active, extremely active kid, and was also quite skilled athletically. He wasn't like a professional, but he had lots of skills in every sport. He could play golf, he could play soccer, and loved doing that very much. I had lots and lots and lots of energy then, so I kind of was able to match him, and so he kept us on our toes all the time. And then when he was around 13, he began to have trouble in school, and which we, for many years, just kind of couldn't see the word mental illness in our minds, and kept thinking, oh, this is teenage years. And everybody said to us, to a person, don't worry, this is teenage stuff like that. My uncle was like this, and now he's the head of something at MIT or something like that. It's all going to work out.
Yeah.
And then eventually it became obvious that it wasn't going to work out, and it became more and more worrisome. And then at a certain point we realized it was mental illness, and then we started to figure out what it was, and then we went into the mental health system.
How did you navigate, because you have two children?
Yes.
How did you navigate with two children when one is suffering in such a way and you're still a parent to another child in the house?
That's very difficult. And I feel that we were like, each of us were two different people. So that Marilyn was two people, I was two people. And it felt to me sometimes like we had a different life with Martha than we had with Louis. In fact, I talked to Martha about this recently. And she said that, she felt that, the difficulty in our lives of Louis being there, and it was very difficult times. And but I don't think she feels too bad about it, because we really worked hard to have this other kind of life. Yeah. But that's true.
And be parents to her too.
It is very definitely that child can take so much of your energy. You've got to be very, very careful.
Absolutely, for sure. I can't imagine having a teenager who you're trying to love and accept and say this is just the personality that they have to sit with that person and say, we're concerned. We think what your behavior crosses over that line into mental illness. How did you approach that?
Well, I don't remember when we ever had that first conversation with him where we used those terms. He certainly used those terms in, fairly early on, but not.
He thought there was something wrong.
I think he knew something was wrong, and Louis always, hoped that medication would help him. He knew he was having, intrusive thoughts. So he had OCD and was what sometimes is called pure pure obsessive compulsive, which is intrusive thoughts. So he would have very bad thoughts and about harming other people or harming himself, or saying something inappropriate, or having inappropriate sexual thoughts. And these are all from the textbook, and they fit so many people. And so when we finally found out that that's what he had, it was kind of a great relief. And I said to him, Louis, you've got OCD. Like, good news. It's something we can.
Absolutely.
And there's all kinds of therapy and stuff like that, right? So. So I don't remember when it was that we first, but certainly in 2003, in December, when we went to see Dr. Hogan, that's the first time he ever had a real straight diagnosis. Although in grade 10, when he was 15, he was kicked out of school, out of McDonald Drive on his birthday, actually, his 15th birthday, because he had kicked a glass thing in the principal's office in. And then he went to the district school for a while, which I didn't know existed. And a lot of people, the kids there, I think there was two streams. There was kids who had been troubled with the law and kids who had mental illness. And so he went to that program, and then some wonderful teacher named Mrs. March at McDonald Drive got him through grade 9. And got him to get credits for 3 courses by doing one project, which is wonderful.
Wow.
So he got into Prince of Wales then, but he never really finished that. It was a slow process of him realizing what he had. So he was in trouble a lot. But I think it was difficult for him, for sure, to have to deal with that. So I didn't know, you realize, like, you sort of say, he wouldn't bring anything to school with him. Like, he was very worried about, also he had every single textbook OCD thing, like a cleanliness thing, having to have a towel on the thing. He had, even had checking sometimes, he had intrusive thoughts, and wanting to go back and see that we hadn't run over a child. Like, he would say, I think I saw a baby on the side of the road there. And I say, Louis, you know what I mean? And then he would make me drive back. And then eventually the doctor said, don't drive back. And he would beg me and say, please, what if we made a mistake? What if there is a baby that we ran over, or a small child?
That's real to him.
Oh, my God. And he was just suffering so much. And we were begging him, saying, no, here's a pencil. Please take a pencil to school. Right. And I'm yelling at him in the front hall of the house. I'm sometimes pushing him out the door to get into the car to go to school. And then eventually thinking, like, this is not somebody who doesn't want to go to school. This is something more. And it took us a while to figure that out.
So when this is happening, and you and your wife are quite well known in the city, how does it feel when you're on a show at the Hall, or you're on a TV show, or different things, and people know you're really, like, very high profile? For a small place, you're pretty high profile. You would think that the supports would be there for your family, that it would be, this is Andy Jones's son, we should take it, like, let's get him some help, so to have him kicked out of a school, how was that for you as a person who's going off to be in a public showing or a public thing? Like, did that factor in for you guys at all, that you should have almost gotten some special treatment?
Well,
a little. Certainly not the other way.
No, but I don't necessarily think that we got any worse or better treatment than anybody. Everyone was, just trying to figure out what was going on. It was everyone was improvising in a way. The school was improvising. We were improvising around what the events were. Mm-hmm. I remember always feeling, and I still feel it, and that is, God, I felt it yesterday again. Whenever I'd be at a party or at a dinner somewhere, and I would think, here I am at this dinner with all these people, and we're laughing and having a glass of wine, everyone's talking, and it's fun, and I'm thinking, Louis is home. home in his apartment. This is when he was sicker. You know what I mean? And he's just, is he ever going to be able to go to an event like that? And sometimes we would beg him and beg him and beg him. He would come in and he would literally stay for 15 seconds. He would come and say hello to my sister, to her house like that, and say hello to, and he loved her, and then, but he just had to get out the door and we'd take him home again. So this was happening over and over again. So I still feel, and I still have a problem always, and I will till I die probably, thinking, here I am, I'm laughing with you, or, having fun and so on like that, and Louis dead, and also that he never got to have much of that for the last about, say, maybe 12 years of his life, for sure.
I kind of imagine, as a parent, like if you have a dream for your child to play hockey, and they just can't get skating, or they just not good on, they're not coordinated and things like that, and you just want this for them for your own reasons. But healthy, just being happy and having these experiences is, that's a pretty helpless feeling.
It is. And you certainly change, sometimes I see, people who are collecting bottles on the side of the road, like that. And I think, that I wish Louis was alive and doing that, or, in terms of having a middle class hope for children to be doctors or lawyers or, or whatever, you certainly your standards of, normal middle class success go down. You think, anything that he could have been happy, he could have found something, and lots and lots and lots of people do, and lots of people with mental illness find themselves and figure stuff out. It happens all the time. That's why you got to be very positive. I just spoke to a friend of mine who has a business in town where he hires lots of people who have mental illness, and he just told me about a person who I happen to know, and he said that she's just blossoming after having a very, very bad struggle. So there is so much hope.
12 years is a long time to be living with mental health, with that severe of a mental health issue.
Yes.
How did you guys take care of yourselves?
Well, we tried. I mean, and I was able to keep working, and I always worked, and I have a lot of energy. I used to have a lot more energy, but so I was able to work and still, but so much of our free time or spare time or whatever was
not working time.
Not working time was with Louis. So every evening, if I was coming home from the Arts and Culture Center, I would always go to Louis' place, and we would talk and try to make some supper or something. And then the ACT team visited him every day, and every single appointment he had, we took him. So I feel this emptiness now. I constantly think, what did I used to do in the evenings? And usually it was because we were involved with Louis in some way. So, he was big in our life. We had as much interaction with Louis as most people have in their lifetime, probably with their child.
Well, they move out when they're 18, and then they visit however often.
And then, so we were, so that was a good thing in some ways. It was a blessing to be able to hang out with him that much. But to watch him suffering was just unbearable. And to watch your child suffer, it's just an amazingly very, very difficult thing.
Just tear your guts out to watch
Absolutely,
him and not be able to help.
Absolutely, yep.
So you said the ACT team visited him every day.
So at a certain point in about 2012, I think, or 2011, they recommended that he get the ACT team to come. That's the Assertive Community Treatment Team. And it's sort of a fund money-saving thing, I guess, for the government. And that's another, rather than have you in the hospital, they have someone come every day and give you your medication and, supposedly check on you and stuff like that, right?
But then until the next day, 24 hours later, there's no monitoring of what you do.
No, that's what you're, so it's, and, the ACT team is, it works in many ways. I wish sometimes that they had a little more flexibility in what they could do. Like they could never help. For example, they couldn't wash dishes. And washing dishes is something that you can really talk to someone. Like this kind of a thing you do together.
It's a meditative. They actually meditative during meditation.
Yeah,
and sweeping the floor.
Sweeping the floor. They weren't allowed to do any of that stuff. And I don't necessarily want them to be cleaning up my son's house, but it is a way of working, of talking to someone.
It's amazing that they don't have that included. Someone with OCD, to keep their hands busy, their mouth would follow, like they would talk.
Yes,
like
I don't know. You know, I mean, there's lots of reasons for that. You know,
Yeah.
sure. But anyway, you know, and I'm not. You know, I've been studying since 2017. This last 18 months, I've been going back over all the literature about OCD, and I've been reading a lot of stuff for the first time. I wish I had read more when Louis was alive, actually. And I'm realizing, you know, that the problems in the system are so deep that it's very difficult to say, oh, I blame this person for that, or blame that, you know, or this, I would change this right away. I don't know. It's going to take a meta, you know, thinking, a world, what some people call worlding.
Yeah.
You have to see the whole situation.
Yeah. Or someone with a lived experience who can say, you know, if you guys had just could have done this differently, maybe they could just try it. It wouldn't maybe be a world-changing thing. Maybe it'd just be a little bit of flexibility in the treatment programs.
And there are people like this guy, Todd Leader from Nova Scotia, who introduced these programs into the schools and into the whole healthcare system in one of the healthcare systems in Nova Scotia, where he made it so that, you know, he just did stuff like he reduced wait times to see a psychologist from 3 months or something to 3 days. So every school had a psychologist that came 1 day a week. And, you know, and you could see, so you could go right to your counselor if you wanted to, and then every 5 school days or something, there would be a counselor there. So if you wanted to, you could make your first, you could see your own counselor, then see a psychologist. So that was an amazing change, and that seemed to help things a lot. And he had a psychological team go into the hospital, so when you came to emergency, rather than having to be sent to another place where the psychological services were, they were there in the building. And he did a bunch of things like that. His book is called "It's Not About Us," and it's about doctors saying this is not about us, you know, and making so that there were, you could see a psychologist on the weekend. You could see a psychologist in the evening. So you say to people who are psychologists, look, this is not about you. If you want to be a psychologist and you want it, you got to be flexible.
Be there when people need it.
You know, every year you're going to do 5 Saturdays. You know, every year you're going to do 15 Wednesday evenings or whatever.
It's
and
not
that's
a cushy job with a nice office.
That's your job, not docs in boxes like they say. Anyway.
So you had a lot of interaction. So did the medication work? Did these teams, the ACT team, all these other therapies, did they work? Was there any relief for Louis?
I think the short answer is no. Looking back at it now, again, I'm not sure because I haven't done enough. I've actually been, as you can see these pieces of paper on the wall here, this is each year of Louis' life. And I'm going through all the medical. I've got all his medical records. I have 1,600 pages of medical records, which are pretty hard to read, you know. And so what was the question again? Sorry.
Did anything work? Did anything give him?
Oh yeah. So I'm trying to see if there's any connection between medication and success. And sometimes I think I can see medication and the opposite of success. And overall, I think the medication didn't seem to help him other than to drug him so that he wasn't a problem. So he wasn't a problem, kind of, you know, but he didn't like that and he couldn't sleep. So, but I do recognize, you know, having read a lot of Robert Whitaker's stuff and looking at some things on this website called Mad in America, which is where all the debate's going on about medication, and everyone says there are some people who medication really helps for.
Absolutely
helps. Yeah, but I would, you know, venture to say at this point that I can't see a connection. You know, I saw times when he seemed to get better. You know, like, and it seems to me that if I look at the graph, you know, that Louis, from the time he was 13, say, till he was 28, or 14 till 28, it seems like we were going some way down. There'll be little ups like that, but the overall graph was heading down.
Was it maybe related to particular times of the year, certain holidays where there'd be family around or family not around, or seasons of the year or anything like that? Or
I think there might have been a bit of that, because certainly in the fall, in school he couldn't get through, and then, and that might be just part of the pathology of that particular illness. But generally speaking, I mean, you can usually tell if you're mentally ill, then you are unaffected by stuff like it's Christmas. Although it could be a negative thing for you,
right.
But you sort of think, well, why can't you get happy because it's Christmas, or
Right.
because it's your birthday,
Right.
or
It's
because
almost
it's
worse at those times.
yeah, because so I don't think that I think he was the illness is so powerful, and the image I always use is like, he's sword fighting. It's like you're saying to somebody, clean up your room, pay attention, talk to me, and it's like you're saying, excuse me, did you notice I'm fighting?
Fighting to just
There's 3 guys with swords after me. I'll deal with you later, but I mean I can't deal with this now, and that's what I feel like, and so that the fact that he could talk to us at all, and that he amazingly kept his sense of humor, which was, I think, a lot of people tell me that that's very, very rare, but he always had he was still able to joke even at the end, right?
Was there anything that he sunk himself into? Was there anything that he was interested in? Did he love to do any particular thing that
In his life, you
he
mean?
got joy from?
Well, he loved sports. And that was the saddest thing when he couldn't play anymore, and he got physically, so from taking so much medication and from being home and not going out, and
So he couldn't do the things that
he
did
couldn't do
enjoy
the things he could do. I remember I took him skiing a few years before he died, and he couldn't ski anymore, and could snowboard. He was able to do all that stuff. That was very, very
He
heartbreaking.
lost all of it. So was there any efforts by all these psychologists and experts that were involved? Was there anything other than medication that they were trying to do to?
I will say honestly, I think the psychiatric world would disagree with me. Generally speaking, the psychiatrists are. It seems like they're in the world of prescribing drugs, or they're in the world of researching drugs, and with a few exceptions. And I think all of them did have some, talk therapy, but really it was the psychologists who, and he did see some psychologists, and although I've got the psychologist's notes, I can't understand his handwriting, but it seemed like he was doing exposure and response therapy, which is the standard therapy for people for OCD.
Yep.
And in fact, I would like to interview him. I'm going to see if I can find him. I know him, or I know who he is, and I'm going to say, can you read your notes for me?
Right.
Because I can't understand what you've written. But also to find out, how far Louis got with that.
Be interesting to see.
Yeah, I would like to. Discuss it.
Yep.
Definitely. I mean, it's so open. All this discussion is still so open.
Not just a forensic investigation, just to say what happened, what went wrong, but like you seem very interested in making it better for the next family that comes along with these issues.
Yes. In fact, recently I have been talking to someone who has a child, and I've been saying to him, even though you may not be the kind of person who wants to research stuff, try anyway to get as much information as you can. The latest information. Anyway, what I do is I'm a bit ADHD myself, and I find it hard to concentrate sometimes. Although sometimes I can really concentrate, but which is part of the illness. But I actually go to the university library and sit down, and I get into a little booth way in the back, and I try to get through these articles and take a few notes like that. And slowly, I'm beginning to learn about about the brain and the amygdala of the brain and stuff like that. So I would say if you can do that, it's a great thing. There's so many other avenues in which people are discovering, like, they're saying that kids need a 1 hour recess in the morning and 1 hour recess in the afternoon, and that they can function so much better.
Right.
And there's lots of theories, and I don't know all of them, but like that schools are built for girls more than boys, and that boys have a kind of energy level, and
It's viewed different when girls have any behavioral issues. It's viewed differently. When boys when I was in school, the kids who got in trouble all the time were just troubled kids, and they ended up in jail, and they just didn't function, and they were given now they're just given medication, but it's not. It doesn't pay any respect to the family that's at home with that kid. And I understand it's an institutional sort of setting where you have to get along and you have to, you can't have every kid hanging off the walls. But that doesn't make it any easier for the families at home.
No, it's, again, I just say, I find it very difficult to say anything definitive about that. But I would say that, I only talk my own experience.
Mm-hmm.
I can't see from the research I've been doing and reading all his medical reports that there's any connection between, any kind of improvements that he ever had and the medication that he was taking. And maybe someone else could analyze it differently.
Did you have a lot of people through this experience, through those 14 years after the diagnosis happened?
Yeah.
Did you have a lot of people saying, maybe he should try energy healing, maybe he should try mountain climbing, or
yes.
Were there a lot of suggestions?
Yes, people suggest that he should go into boot camp, the military boot camp. That'll straighten him out, which,
or kill him, whichever.
Or kill him. And there were people who said yoga would help him, and I was just going, like, this ain't just a yoga situation we're dealing with here.
Right.
And
at that time, when you have a team coming over to your house every single day, you are probably already exhausted with the therapies you are using to try to get them some help.
Yeah.
So to add to that and go, we'll fit yoga classes in on Saturdays, and we'll do swimming on Sundays, and we'll do meditation on Thursdays.
Meditation.
How do you fit it in?
And that's the other thing. And Louis did try meditation, and he certainly tried the, relabeling and all those things that they do in OCD. And he did try those things. And he was also very interested in helping other people with OCD. And in fact, one thing he kept saying is he wanted to write an OCD Bible, he used to say. But it's hard. This is serious stuff. It's quite serious. Like schizophrenia or whatever. When they use that label, which they did use with Louis, which I didn't realize actually until I looked at his records early on in the game. There's a lot at stake there. It's serious. And of course, you want your children to do well and to be successful, and to, you can't help but think that somehow that's connected to happiness. And does happiness even exist? I don't know.
Lucifer, the light of heaven, that sinner never was forgiven, banished to his lowly station till he checks out in Revelations. Why